The best words to describe you by are steady, calm, intelligent, and consistent, like faithful.
First and foremost, I would say he is steady. I have watched him over the years in the midst of just a lot of busyness happening all around him, and he is very unswayed by the chaos and just faithfully devotes himself to helping the people around him.
When I think about you, Dad, I think about somebody who is just always there, always faithful, always shows up. Somebody who doesn't showboat or try to grab attention for himself, but is there to be a helpful presence for others. And also somebody who is a bottomless wealth of information, of the most random facts related to politics and heritage and sports and history, and you're very generous with that information. You want others to know the awesome and quirky things that you know, and I love that about you.
By far, I would say the thing that comes to mind is he is a very servant-hearted man. He's someone who is always serving others silently in the background, and you won't even notice for a while, and then you'll just realize all these things got done, and it's because he just was faithfully serving in the background.
I've watched him from afar on multiple occasions, just caring for people around him without them even noticing, and he's never looking to be noticed. He works really, really hard to support the people around him.
I remember when Eric first got his job with working as a police officer, and he was working nights, and I had Raya as a baby, and I was at home in the evening, and I just heard noise on the side of my house, and I got a little nervous and scared at first, and I looked outside, and Dad had come over just on his own and was taking my trash cans out because it was trash day. And I never asked him to, and even when I popped out to say hi, he was like just about to leave. Like he wasn't even gonna tell me he did that. And I feel like that just perfectly describes the type of man that my dad is.
I love watching him love his wife and the way that he just commits himself and devotes himself to loving her well and being alongside her when she's starting new ventures and coming up with ideas. She's quite the visionary, and he is the one that helps her make those things come to fruition a lot of times, and it's wonderful to see the way that they work together.
So when I met Nida and Dan Poblete, I was young. I was a kid. I was 17 when I started dating Cammie. So it was very much a relationship of like father-child, like older person to younger person. And my read of who Dan was that he was very stoic, he was very quiet, he was always very nice, but we didn't exactly sit and chat a whole bunch. And me and Cammie had been dating now for like a little bit. I'd been around the house. I was always trying to be very respectful to him and Nida. And I remember a night in particular that we all went out to dinner, and it was at Opa restaurant in RSM. I used to work there, and me and Dan sat next to each other for dinner, And I remember he asked me a question about my last name. My last name is Donahue, and he asked, "Is it Irish?" And I said basically what I knew about my own last name. I was like, yeah, I'm Irish. Like, you know, several generations ago we had the Donahues moved from Ireland to Chicago and blah, blah. And for the next, what felt like several hours, but probably was like half an hour, Dan gave me this, like, he talked more than I thought was even possible, and explained to me the whole historical event of like potato famine in Ireland and mass immigration and persecution of Irish people, and literally gave me probably a doctorate level dissertation of my own last name and the movement of Irish people to this country. And I knew at that point that he really was passionate about history, and that would be a key to us hanging out and talking and enjoying each other's company. So that's very iconic in my mind to that point.
So I remember one moment in particular that made me just really appreciate him. We were throwing a party at the house. It was a lot of work. There were a lot of moving pieces. We'd been preparing for days, and he was a big part of doing all the heavy lifting and moving furniture around and cleaning the backyard and all sorts of things. And when the party came to an end, everybody was celebrating and saying thank you to everyone but him. And I just saw him in the background with a trash bag, and he was picking up everyone's trash and moving things around. And a group of people came by and they were just like, "Good night, Dan." And he's like, "Good night." And he just smiled at them real big and then just went about doing what he was doing. And I just thought, man, like, what a beautiful example of Christ-likeness. Somebody who's just like not in it to be noticed or recognized, just like happy to give of himself and make sure others are doing well and having fun. And I feel like that moment epitomizes so many other moments I've witnessed in Dan. He loves people very, very well, but most people don't even realize it or recognize it. And I love that about him.
Man, when I think of great childhood memories that I will never forget, I'll just think about how my mind just thinks about like how legendary Dad is. He dated Bo Derek in high school. He once played for the Celtics. And the reason Cammie's laughing, if anybody's watching this and doesn't know, it's because he didn't date Bo Derek in high school. He like carried her books one day or something like that, or she carried his, because do you know the story? Like what?
So he said he broke his leg.
He broke his leg.
And Bo Derek would carry his books for him to his classes.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Because they went to the same high school.
They went to the same high school. And then years and years later, when we were like more adult age, he found his childhood year or his high school yearbook.
Yeah.
And we said, "Can you show us Bo Derek's picture?" And he went, well, you know, I don't know if she was at high school the same year as me. And I said, "What do you mean? She carried your books?" And he goes, "Well, I heard she lived in the Long Beach area."
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So it went from Bo Derek being his girlfriend to like maybe she lived in the area.
Yeah. And I had like my best friend in grade school. Was a big basketball fan, and so the first time that my dad met him, he told my friend that he played for the Celtics, just to get a rise out of him, just for kicks, and not realizing that this kid would run home and tell his dad Chris's dad played for the Celtics. And so the next time that my buddy's dad sees my dad, he goes, "So I heard you used to play for the Celtics." And then Dad had to admit that, yeah, I lied to your kid. Yeah, yeah. So the funny thing about that is like that's how Grandpa was. He'd always tell these tall tales. Try to impress and inspire people. And it
works.
Yeah, it was always funny. That's probably why you told all your friends that I dated Mandy Moore or Hillary Duff or whatever.
We live for the story, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so.
But now how that's carried over is our kids call Papa the strongest man in the world.
Yeah.
And they believe that
They
still.
really do.
So.
Yeah, I do too.
He always said that he's the strongest man in the world.
Do you think he is? Yeah, he is.
Papa says strong, yeah.
Strongest man in the world.
He's so strong.
How strong is he? Oh! Is he the strongest man in the world?
Yeah,
Who's stronger, Papa or you?
Papa.
Oh, man. And what's your favorite thing Papa made?
Pancakes.
Cake.
Pancakes?
What do you-
Pancakes.
Pancakes? Best pancakes ever, huh? Can you tell me something that you like that Papa makes you? That he cooks for you?
Pancakes.
Pancakes? Is Papa the best pancake maker? Yeah.
Pancakes.
Pancakes. What does Papa do that you love so much?
Because he makes waffles.
He does? Is it so yummy?
Yeah,
What else does he cook for you?
pancakes.
Pancakes? Yeah. What do you like that Papa does?
He, like when he's watching basketball, like when the Clippers are on, he changes it so we can watch our show.
Oh, that is really nice of him, huh? What's Papa's favorite basketball team ever?
Clippers.
The Clippers.
Clippers. The Clippers.
The Clippers? Do you like wearing your Clippers shirt? Yeah.
But I don't know where it is.
Okay. Yeah? And does Papa do anything super fun with you? What does he do that's fun?
Play games.
Play games? What kind of games?
The bear game.
The what game?
The bear game.
The bear game? What's the bear game? Can you show me?
Where he sits on us and we be sneaky to get out and he sleeps.
Oh. Does he sit on you? That's silly. Ryan, what do you love about Papa?
That he's silly.
He's silly? How is he silly? What does he do that's so silly?
He does a funny dance and calls us, he calls us like funny names because sometimes he calls me Jackson and Kiana.
That's really funny. So he'll mix up your names? What does he do that's silly?
He tickles me.
He does? How does he tickle you?
Like this.
Tickle, 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 tickle. Can you tell me your favorite thing about Papa?
That he's so kind.
It's also really fun just watching you be Papa to our kids, to Geneva, Haddon, and Judd, and to all their cousins. It's fun seeing you light up when the kids walk in the room, especially the little ones. You've always been the dad and uncle and distant cousin who like loves to wrestle around with the kids and mess with them and make them laugh. And with your grandkids, that's just been multiplied to like the nth degree. You love to have fun with them. You love to mess around with them. And as serious and calm and collected you often are, you're just a silly, fun person around them because you know that that's what they love.
So watching my dad become a papa to my kids, is probably one of the greatest joys that I have in my life. And I feel like I have gotten to know him more through that and see just such a tender side to him that's so special. And all the kids love Papa. I mean, he is always willing to just cook breakfast for them. to get them special treats, pick up donuts and drop them off at the house. I especially love his relationship with Kiana, his special little girl who she just loves and adores Papa. I mean, I still remember when she was maybe a year old and she would just reach for Papa. Every time Grammy came by to give Papa a hug, she'd push Grammy away because she wanted Papa all to herself. And he's just an amazing Papa, always willing to babysit, even going through chemo. He never would turn the kids away. He wanted to see them, and I even remember him and Mom, he had chemo the next day, and we were just coming by to say hi, and Chris and Alyssa at the same time were, and they just said, you know what, why don't you leave all the kids and you guys can go out to dinner. And the night before his chemo treatment, they were babysitting 6 kids, and that's just the type of Papa he is, and the type of Grammy my mom is. And I've loved watching him in that role. It's, you see your parents do so much, growing up as a kid, with their career and just who they are to us as mom and dad, but watching him become a Papa is my favorite role that I've seen him in.
Dad is the best Papa in the world. One of the things that I felt was really surprising, because I didn't know him, when he had little ones. My first experience with him was watching him love on Geneva, and I bore witness to a whole new side of him, just a tenderheartedness and protectiveness and just deep care that he offered Geneva. When we moved into their house, he spent a lot of time with Geneva. While I was working, he'd babysit, and when I was cooking dinner, he'd hold her, and he just soaked up every moment he could. And he's like that with every single grandchild, and he is known for just always being the one to hold the baby. And as much as Nida wants to hold them too, he kind of gets dibs a lot of times, and it's just sweet to see the way that he just throws himself into loving them, and he's also fun with the big kids too.
My dad is, I think, he shows his love in either being super kind and servant-hearted or by totally torturing you.
Yeah.
And so I remember as a kid, he would do, me and all my cousins when we were little enough for him to carry, he'd pick us up and go, it's time for the put breaker. And that was basically where he cradle held us and just bonked our butt basically on a table, and it was put breaker. And it was something that we would all yell and run away from him, but it was always a fun thing. And the best, I think it's cool seeing him do that to our kids.
Yep.
That has carried over, and he does it to Buttons. So.
Yeah, to their dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would say that's something you've picked up from him. You like to torture your kids.
Yeah,
for
I
fun.
do.
So.
Like to wrangle them down to the ground and
yeah.
exert my dominance.
There's a very iconic way that Pobletes, particularly Dan, walk. They're not the lightest on their feet. And Dan has an iconic walk. Cami, in a very feminine version of that walk, has always remind me of her dad. They have very similar leg structure, and even though I like Cami's leg structure a lot better, it has always reminded me of Dan and the Poblete side. And also, there is very much a goofiness or a funniness to Dan at times that doesn't really come out all that often, very rarely. But for a grown man to be able to do the horse dance in front of a large party of people unashamedly, you have to have a level of goofiness and fun to you that you know, a lot of people don't have. And Cammie has very much adopted that type of funny goofiness and taken it probably 10x times what Dan does. Because Cammie will dance in the middle of a huge wedding just as goofy and as hilarious as anybody can, and she just can do it. And I've seen that from Dan too. So those are probably the two things that come to mind.
Chris is more like Dan by the day, but one thing for sure is they both have the Poblete walk. The first time I witnessed the Poblete walk, I think we were on vacation in Hawaii. It was my first time vacationing with the family, and all you hear is boom, 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 boom. And somebody made a comment like, oh, there's the Poblete walk. And I lit up because I knew that walk. I'd heard that walk. My early years of marriage were full of that walk. And it passed down through the generations. And I'm sure it's going to show up in our kids too.
Cool.
You do the Poblete walk.
I do the, no, I hope not.
There you go.
I'm so curious what Eric said. Unfortunately, I feel like it might be snoring.
Really? I did not know that you snore.
I didn't either, but I guess it's increased lately. So
Yeah, I snore too.
hope not.
I definitely got that from Dad, who got that from Grandpa. The nose rub? Is that from Dad?
It's from his side.
It's from
I don't
his
know
side.
I don't know if Dad does
Because
it.
Brendan does it too, our cousin.
Yeah,
I don't know if Julian does, but
she does, I think. Wait, I should.
and Jordan does it. I think
yeah.
that's what I was thinking.
All of our cousins do
So
it.
we call it the Poblete nose rub. My kids do it. There's also the Poblete scowl.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You definitely
So
have
RBF, we call it the Poblete scowl. You just, yeah, like your default face. Yeah.
that. Yeah.
I'm told I take too long to tell stories.
I didn't want to say it.
I think it's debatable, but I like to share all the details.
Yeah.
I want people to relive it with me, and so that's definitely a Dad thing.
You know what? I bet Eric said, I tend to exaggerate my stories. And I
Yeah.
feel like that's obviously a very Dad thing.
That's a very Dad thing, yeah.
Like I'll talk about how I jumped off a cliff into the ocean with Eric, and it was a 30-foot jump.
13-foot jump.
Yeah, and Eric is just behind me going like, it's like maybe 5 feet.
Yeah.
But it felt like 30 feet, and I feel like that's how the story should be told. So.
So man, when I think of ways that you have just contributed to my upbringing, when I think about times that we've enjoyed together throughout the years, I can't help but think about the ways that you just always invested into my growth, particularly in my hobbies. Like, I'm thinking about how you coached my youth basketball team, my Little League basketball team even, and how you continued to do that and persisted with that, even though I was like one of the worst kids on the team at the time. You helped bring me to Young Marines when I was going through that program, waking up at like 5 o'clock in the morning every Saturday to drive me to the air station for my drills. And it's just that steady and constant faithfulness that I think about with you. Yeah, you were very persistent in making sure that I made it to these events, that I grew and didn't give up. When I was a small kid on a sports team, you helped take me to personal training so that I could grow and learn and develop new muscles and learn new skills. And so I've always appreciated that and have learned a lot from just your willingness to show up and push me to grow.
Dad, I'll say Dad, because that's who I think of you as. I think of you as my father. And the way that the past, I guess, close to year has moved with particularly health things. sharing appreciation for who you are as a man and as a figure in my life, are things that I wish I look back that I had done more often. And you know our relationship and who you are. I mean, we're not guys that just sit down and talk about each other's emotions a ton. But I know and you know that we love each other and we're appreciative of each other. And to see you as a grandfather to my children is so special. And I could count easily on one hand the amount of people that I trust or appreciate spending time around my children, and you would be at the top of the list. The calmness and the fun and the eagerness I see in my children and that you share with them there isn't other person like that. And you've always been a calming, steady presence in my life and in our family's lives. I hope the Lord gives us more time, but we both know that's at best a question mark. And I want you to know that you leave a legacy of calmness and steadiness that I hope to carry in the family. And you're greatly appreciated, and I'm happy for all the years that God has for you, and even if this is the last one, I just want you to know that you're very appreciated. You'll be very remembered of who you are, and the legacy that you've started in our family will last for generations. So we love you, and happy birthday.
Dad, happy birthday. I am forever grateful for the way that you've welcomed me as a daughter into your family. You have made me always feel welcomed and part of your home and your family, and have made me feel incredibly loved. One of the things that I have loved and admired about you over the years is the way that you have exemplified loving your wife well. I've watched you serve her, devote yourself to her, care for her needs, both practical and otherwise. You just, you exemplify what it looks like to just love with a devotion that I don't see in a lot of marriages today. So I'm thankful for your example. I'm thankful that my kids have had years of witnessing you, loving your wife and your family well, and we are all better because of you. So we love you so much. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Dad. I love you. I'm so grateful for who you are to me, to my kids, and to our family. And I feel so honored to be able to celebrate you on this day. You spent all your days taking care of others and doing things for others, and it's truly a joy to be able to celebrate you today. Happy birthday.
So I want to wish you a very happy, very, very blessed, very joy-filled birthday. I know that this last year has just been crazy with all the ups and downs and giant question marks that our family has had to deal with. But I want to make sure that you are celebrating this year that God has given you, this wonderful life that He's blessed you with. I'm thankful for your life. I'm thankful that He brought you into this world, that He made you my dad, that He's given you a new life in Christ. And I really hope that you feel celebrated today, because you deserve it.
I love you, Papa. 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 I love you, Papa.
Luca loves you, Papa.
I love you, Dad.
I love you, Dad.
I love you, Dad.
I love you, Dad.